A lot of people get stuck on how do I price my ducted? Do I put a markup on my materials, my markup on my labor? What do I do? Why do I lose jobs? Why do I win so many jobs? Blah, blah, blah. I'm gonna tell you exactly how I price my job. But before I do that, I wanna tell you exactly how Airbnb businesses work and why they can be profitable and why they don't, because it's gonna give you a really good understanding on this. This is where a lot of people go wrong when they're listing a property on Airbnb. They might have a home and they might say, well, I want to list this home for $400 per night. It's all based off a nightly rate. So let's say they list that home for $400 per night. Now, because it's priced a little bit high in the market and people don't really think it's worth $400, it might only be worth $300, they don't book that many, but they still might book 3 nights. So they're able to get 3 nights done for that week. So in return, they're able to generate $1,200 for the week. But here's how successful Airbnb management companies work. They would see this property and go, well, I'd prefer to have higher occupancy, but at lower rate. So instead, they come in at $300 and they get 5 nights. So now they've made $1,500. So $1,500. So instead of doing $1,200, they've done $1,500 because the cost of the property is the exact same, right? Your payments on that home doesn't change. If I only book 3 nights, my bank loan is still the exact same because they price based on how much revenue they can maximize in that week. And sometimes charging a little bit less, but getting more in is a better option. Now, I know a lot of people are gonna get very defensive and go, well, you're just trying to undercut the market and just be a volume game. No, that's not the case at all. I have an understanding of how the market actually works. And I'm trying to teach people the truth that when it comes to growing their business. Now, this is not applicable to word of mouth, okay? If Joe Blow comes to you off the street and says, you need a job for my uncle and my cousin, can you quote me? He's not gonna get multiple quotes. Of course, you can put a lot of margin in there. And there's a lot of guys who have a business right now and it doesn't grow, but they do a bit of word of mouth and they charge a phenomenal amount in there and they think that every single job in the world is gonna have that much margin. You need to wake up to the reality. Just because you think that you can charge a certain amount, if customers don't accept that quote, then it means nothing. And you need to look at it from a business perspective. So that what you need to do is this, okay? You need to understand what are your fixed costs. When you're growing a business, you need to know what are my fixed costs for the week. The way you can work that out, okay, break everything down. So you might say, here are my fixed costs for the week. $1,000 on marketing. Okay. And then I might have, let's say I've got a team of 4. So I've got 1 worker, 2,500, another worker, 2,500, and then a TA, maybe 1,000, and an admin, let's say 1,500, okay? And then you've got some cars. And mind you, I build the car cost into that, so no one's actually making $2,500 as a full-time worker, so I'm building the car cost into that. That's basically how it works out with super and everything like that. It's around $2,500. But let's just say hypothetically, you have $500 for fuel, another $500 on subscriptions, and let's just add another $1,000 to miscellaneous and things like that as well. You might have a warehouse or something like that. So we can even add in $1,000 to, this is weekly. So yeah, it could be, you could say $1,000 for a warehouse as well, okay? So here are some fixed costs per week. So now you need to figure this out based off 52 weeks, exactly how that works. So 1,000 plus 1,000 plus 2,500 plus 2,500 plus 1,000 plus 1,500 plus 500 plus 500 plus 1,000. 11,500, okay? For everything here equals 11,500 times 52, because you pay these every single week. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's holidays or anything like that. You're paying these costs every single week. 52. So now you know $598,000 is going to be your yearly cost. So times 52 weeks, 52 weeks equals, let's just say 600,000, round an easy number. So if you do 1 ducted a week, or if you do 2 ducted a week, 3 ducteds a week, 4 ducteds a week, 5 ducteds a week, 1 ducted, 10 splits, whatever that is, it doesn't matter. This cost is the exact same. No matter what happens for your year, you are going to pay $600,000. So now you need to start to look at your weeks. Okay, now you need to start to strategize your week. You have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And this is where a lot of people go wrong. And this is why I think the only effective business model realistically is the ducted business model, because it's going to be too chaotic without it. Because a lot of people will do a ducted here, they might do a ducted here, and they're charging a lot, right? Let's say they've got $6,000, 6,000, couple of word of mouth, 6,000, or maybe this one's 5,500, 5,500. And then here they've got some, they're just doing a little bit of a catch up and a couple of splits. There might be like 1,000 in the splits. Okay, you got 1,000 in the splits. Maybe around about another 1,000 in some service work as well. Here, you've got some service work. So you got your 4 guys doing some servicing for the day. So let's say you got 2,000 there. 1,000. And then this day, Friday, is just a bit of a bum around day, a bit of a catch up day. You might only have $1,000, okay? So now we need to add these up and go, how much did I make for the week? 6,000 plus 5,500 plus 2,000 plus 2,000 plus 1,000. Okay? 16,500. I was able to generate 16,500. Now, I could be even a little bit more friendly, add an extra 1,000 here as well. Okay? So add an extra 1,000 on the Friday. So now we're at 17,500. Maybe I'll add an extra 1,000 here on the Wednesday. And then we're at 18,500, okay? Now, the reason these days are a little bit smaller is this is a combination of some service, a little split throw in here and stuff like that. But for the week, your team that you've got, your team of 5, was able to generate $18,500. Because you didn't win as many ducteds because you priced quite high. You're putting $6,000 on top of your materials. So basically you have 2 costs. You have the cost of your materials, the system, everything like that. So your indoor unit, your outdoor unit, your pipes, your electrical, all of that stuff. You're gonna have an invoice for that, right? And then it's whatever you put on top of that invoice, not your percentage markups, no 10% markup. It doesn't work like that. I'm just saying on top of that. So this here is I got a quote for all of my materials and I added $6,000 on there. Okay, no percentage markup, just a simple flat rate of $6,000. This one is $5,500, okay? And now I'm sitting quite high. That's quite high, $6,000. Because of that, I only won 2 ducteds for the week, but I had a bunch of other jobs here. But now I've got 1 customer, 2 customers, and then maybe between here, there's another 8 or so jobs. So that's 8 customers there. $2,000 here, there's another 5 jobs there. So we got 8 plus 5. Now we're at 13 jobs, plus another 7 on the Friday. So now these are small little service jobs. We're at 20 jobs there, 22 jobs. So let's just say 20 jobs. 20 jobs equals $18,500. Because you think, right, these are all little service things. You got your aircon cleans, a couple of breakdowns, a little service, something like that, a split system. It adds up. You got those jobs there. So 20 jobs, you've had to deal with 20 customers. You got to send out 20 invoices. You got to follow up 20 people. You got to go through that whole process. Some of these people might not pay the invoice because they can't be bothered or anything like that. But this is where I think the business model can become a little bit better. Because what happens if we said, I want to wipe out these 3 jobs. I don't want to do these because I can't be bothered dealing with an extra 17 customers if I don't have to. But how can I fill this week? Well, can I do a ducted? And can I do a ducted here? And hold on a sec, I might even say, let's keep Friday free for a free day to catch up on stuff. And instead of doing here, we might only do 4,500, 4,500, 4,500, 4,500. What does that equal? 4,500 plus that, 9,000, 18,000. Okay? So equals 18,000. But you've just gone from 20 jobs to 4 jobs and you've left a day for free, and you've made the same amount of money. You generated the same amount of money. These fixed costs are the exact same. So now you've got this here, and you're like, I've got this whole free day. So you could chuck a Ducted in there, 4,500, and now all of a sudden it brings this up to 22,500. And you're dealing with less customers. And these customers are a lot better, okay? Because they're spending more. The worst customers are service work, because they don't pay. Then split systems are the next worst. These are the best customers. Now, you probably sit here and thinking, who the fuck wants to do a Ducted a day? People do, I promise you. Because I work with 30 clients at the moment, and I work with a lot of clients that do 5 to 10 Ducteds a week. I did 10 Ducteds a week to my aircon company. People like to do Ducteds, believe it or not, just because you don't. I would never be a concreter in my whole entire life, but people do concreting. I would never be a painter, but people are painters. Just because you wouldn't do something, just because you wouldn't do it, it doesn't mean other people won't. So you gotta remove that self-limiting belief. So this is how, guys, why I start to price the way I do. Because I price to maximize how much revenue, how much profit I can generate for the week. Because I'd rather make $18,000 from doing only 4 jobs than $18,500 but doing 20 jobs. So that is exactly how I price. I get the cost of my system. So I will get a quote from the suppliers, and it might be for whatever it is, and it will be $6,000. And that's included everything delivered to site. All of my materials delivered to site. So all I gotta do is rock up on the day and screws and fittings. And then I will add 4,500. Now, do I stick to that every single time? Absolutely not. Sometimes I'll speak to a customer who is super, super hot, super hungry, super urgent, and I know they're not getting any other quote. So I might chuck 5,500 in there for that job, because I'm gonna gauge it out, I'm gonna feel it out. But the overall, and what I'm doing is I'm doing this at 4,500, but here's where it gets fun. You do it at 4,500, you're doing 5 a week, okay? Every single job you're getting video content, you're getting more video testimonials, you're building out a phenomenal social media, people are seeing you, they're exposed to you, they're trusting you, you're booked out for 3 weeks in advance. So all you need to do to add an extra $2,500 a week is bump this up to $5,000. Because now you've scaled revenue to the maximum you can scale it with your team. This is the max output. So now instead of scaling revenue, we scale profit. Because you can scale your revenue and then you scale your profit. So now all of a sudden we start to scale profit. We're at 5,000, 5,000, 5,000. Now we're at 25,000. Without doing anything different. Because we scaled to a certain point, we maximize the team, we then improve the business, our systems, processes, we got better content in place, we built a better company, and now we start to scale profit. And all of a sudden you've got this, 25,000. So what does that work out to be? We got 48 working weeks a year, or 50, most people is 50, okay? So let's say 45. 48 times 22,500 is 1,080,000. So this business model, this is at 4,500. This business model, 1080, has $400,000 profit in there for an operator. You've got a full team, an admin, and all you're doing is sales. And you've got $400,000 profit in there. But if you went up to here, when you can scale it up, and all of a sudden you've now got $25,000 for the week, 25,000 times 48 is 1.2 million. So now you've got $600,000 profit. So when you're building the business, guys, think of it like this, because a lot of you are losing jobs, and a lot of you are not winning jobs, and a lot of you are stuck at 1 Ducted or 2 Ducted a week, simply because you're either pricing yourself out, or you're trying to take on a bunch of shitty little jobs that don't actually make money. So this is exactly how I price. This is what I think is the best business model and the most effective way to do it. And if you put $4,500 in your jobs, you will scale to 5 very quickly. And then once you've got all your content, your social proof, your testimonials and everything like that, I guarantee that you can scale it up to that $5,000 a mark. Thank you so much.